Hey, it's Debbie, and I am back actually solo today. I was meeting my friend Mary Roberts to do a podcast on carbohydrates. Are they all evil? Do we have addiction to carbs that sometimes it is better to limit or maybe restrict for some people? And talking about cheat days and carb refeed days. But sadly, Mary had a family emergency and we are rescheduling. So if you have questions on that topic, send me a message because I think our relationship with food is really important. As athletes, we often are racing, training and racing a lot because of other reasons. Maybe we're trying to burn more calories, to lose weight. Maybe we just love training and being outdoors as I do and going for a bike ride as I did this morning and just enjoying nature. But often people are running from something that we race a lot. And what's your why? As I always like to ask clients, what's your why? What drives you? And Mary and I have been on the low carb cruise a few times. Mary Roberts, you can check her out. She talks about food addiction, eating disorders, ED, they call it. And I think it's really a great topic for our world, our athlete world, and looking at why do you choose to train and race, but also how are you eating? How are you fueling? And how's your relationship with foods? Because often we, I think, start fasting, for example, and not eating sometimes is easier than trying to figure out what to eat. So that's a big topic I wanted to go into with Mary and some other future guests I have scheduled on the show to talk about, are we fasting too much? Are we avoiding dealing with, I don't know what to eat, so it's easier just not to eat and call that intermittent fasting and doing 24, 72-hour fasts, but you're still training a lot and keeping up with that higher volume of exercise, zone 2 or interval training, whatever you might be doing, but it all accumulates. And a lot of times we as athletes and female athletes, we end up having hormone dysregulation. We're not getting enough calories in and we're not hitting those protein goals. And you might be suffering with your performance in your workouts because you're not eating enough. And maybe you do need some carbohydrates, natural carb sources when you're doing more anaerobic workouts. So I am on a mission to help you individually as a coaching people to figure that out because it is not one size fits all, and looking at how we can tweak things around. So since Mary just canceled on me, I'm going to record going over how to become fat adapted and doing keto, because there's a process, as Dr. Dan Plews talks about in the GRIQ program, how to transition from maybe a higher carbohydrate food plan and you want to get into nutritional ketosis and be fat adapted. My question is, what's your why again? And are you trying to chase ketones and being in nutritional ketosis all the time? Is nutritional ketosis necessary for you if you do not have metabolic disorder, if you don't have Parkinson, Alzheimer's, cancer, any kind of brain-related disorder? And I think it's really important to look at what's your reasoning for fasting and what's your reasoning for being in nutritional ketosis. When we are exercising, I think it's important to be burning fat and being able to go to that backup fuel tank when I'm going to do speed work, intervals, tempo pace. And I was doing hills today on my bike and getting my heart rate up, you're going to burn carbohydrates and then switch back to being burning fats. We want to be metabolically flexible, but how do you get there? So let's dive in. And again, send me questions if you are one of those, that many of you struggle with your relationship with food, as Mary and I will reschedule, but talking about, not all carbs are evil. And sometimes we need to limit them because, example, I was going to talk about, if I have bread, good, yummy bread with olive oil, I could eat the whole loaf. I do not get full. And if you look at my genetic reports, I am more prone to type 2 diabetes and I am more carb resistant. And as I'm over 50 now, my hormones are really low and I'm probably going eventually through the menopause stages that I need to look at my limiting carbs and timing my carbohydrates, real food sources, post workouts, evening meal, when I'm more carb sensitive post workout. And for me, individually, I can't tolerate things like bread because I can't do wheat. Gluten is very reactive to me. And also that will just make me full. So I choose to eat more recently, not so much vegetables as I used to be a salad queen, and choose foods that are more nutrient dense that make me feel full and satisfied for hours. And that gives me energy, reduces my cravings. I'm satiated. So when I'm looking at my clients' food logs and looking at their training logs, I want to look at, how do you feel after you eat? Do you still have hunger cravings? Do you need something else? For me, as individually, I need higher protein. So more getting my fat and protein from animal sources. And that works for me. I can eat a lot. I can have a big old steak with butter and lots of salt and I am full. But if I just have big salad, or if Neil makes some like gluten-free pasta or risotto or some potatoes, it doesn't fill me up. So I will overeat more calories than I need and keep wanting more. So for me, carb restriction is because it doesn't make me full. And Mary was talking about on our low carb cruise, we were discussing about, do you need a carb refeed day? Do you need a cheat day? Now, if you have food addiction, as her clients and a lot of people in this low carb conference were on the cruise ship, they have food addiction, carb addiction, sugar addiction. So if you think of that as an alcoholic, if you tell an alcoholic, hey, no alcohol 6 days a week, but 1 day a week, you can drink as much as you want. And then the next day, go back to no alcohol. That's what it is for a lot of carbohydrate addicts. So when we talk about carb restriction or going low carb and not having a lot of these foods that are addictive, sometimes we can't tolerate a little bit of that because that will set you off for a binge. So when we talk about cheat days, carb refeed days, restricting, it really is individual again. And if that restriction is good for you, or if you're going to have a little bit of it, it's going to set you off for a binge. If you're too restricted, what will happen? So I like to look at eat real food, nutrient dense foods, and Dr. Ken Berry's proper human diet, more ancestral health, primal, paleo. So there's different names from it, but it all comes down to eat real food, nutrient dense food, get your proper digestion so you can get the nutrients from that nutrient dense food. So a lot of us need enzymes or even have apple cider vinegar before you eat, and get all you need from your food you eat. But most people eat a lot of processed foods, lots of vegetable oils, excessive carbohydrates that are empty calories. So going back to the slides. So make sure you're watching the YouTube channel because I'll be posting things here more than my podcast on audio version because this is easier. So one thing I want to talk to Mary also about, the sardine challenge people are doing. Is that good for someone that is struggling with anorexia or bulimia or eating binge disorder, that having just sardines for 3 days, who's that good for? Why do people do that? I don't know. Okay, so here's Endure IQ. Dr. Dan Plews created this program. I want to share some things. Obviously, you need to go to their program, see their coaches, their website to get more information. Fasted exercise, carb timing for athletic performance gains. Now, if you are going to work on a 4 to 6 week fat adaptation program, this is what I do with clients, and I'm coaching for Team Keto. This is type I will be doing in the program. Phase one, baseline. And let me move my camera picture of me out of the way. So normal training program we look at. And then phase 2, whole foods, keep routine the same, but reduce volume around 10%. Phase 3 is called keto, where you're going to reduce your training load by 20 to 25%. Maintain 2 HIIT training sessions a week so your body's able to dip into that stored muscle glycogen. This is where someone was just asking in our Keto Endurance Facebook group page how they felt really horrible doing cold keto. I don't think they were adjusting the workout. So when you're doing this, we'll go into how females need to do cold keto differently than men, but you need to adjust your training 25% less volume. Once you get through cold keto phase, again, it'll be different for females with the hormone cycle. And then you go into phase 4, the sweet spot, gradually increasing training back up over 2 to 3 weeks. You return to your normal training schedule. So this is 4 phases. And we want to look at that for your training schedule. How are you going to do that? So this is what you want to probably do, not around race season. It's your off season. So in GRIQ, Dr. Dan Plews talks about how to become fat adapted for athletes. So again, phase 1 is your baseline. Maybe we're here a week, 2 weeks. This is what I do when I start with clients. Don't change anything. Let me just learn about you. Let me learn about your relationships with food, when you're eating, what you're eating, how you are eating, how are you feeling after you eat, how's your energy, how's your mood, how's your gut feel, how's your poop, and look at your blood sugar, heart rate variability. We want to collect data. I just want to observe and learn. And then when we're ready, we move to phase 2. We're working on whole foods. What can you do to get rid of, say you're having a Cliff Bar, and then you're having this packaged food from the grocery store, the gas station, convenience store. What can we do? What are other options? And then we're just working baby steps. We're preparing to go to phase 3, cold keto. This is where typically stay around 3 weeks, where we're increasing the carbohydrates. We're increasing the fat and the animal-based diet. So animal proteins, fat, nuts and seeds. People that I work with have gut issues when we're doing their GI map or Genova diagnostics stool test. A lot of people have gut issues, gut wall lining damage, that nuts and seeds aren't great. Legumes, same thing. We have to get rid of some foods that can be irritants to the gut wall lining. So then we'll just focus on the animal proteins with the healthy fats. Carbs around 50 grams. Non-starchy vegetables for your carbohydrates, in season berries. Females that are pre-menopause, we're going to take this 3-week cold keto into a 2-week block. So day 7 of your menstrual cycle to day 14 is when you'll do cold keto. So you're going to take this 1 week and then do it again the next phase. Super fascinating to really match your fueling and training with your hormone cycle. I do that with my clients on Training Peaks. Now, let's go a little deeper into each one. We've got phase 1. This is what we'll be doing. Maintain what you're doing. Just learn about your habits, internal physiology, baseline values, collecting clues. We're learning about you. Then we're also going to be monitoring your glucose, maybe with the Keto Mojo, pricking your finger. NutriSense is a CGM, or there's levels, different programs out there using a continuous glucose monitor, which is a CGM. So you can just scan your little CGM device with your phone to connect your data to your app. And then I want you to measure heart rate variability. That's with a chest strap, ideally. Hanu Health, Sweet Beat Life, different ones out there, HRV Elite, that we want to get your real-time data. If we use our Aura or our Whoop, heart rate variability is not 100%, as well as real-time looking at the LF and HF score, which is low frequency and high frequency. So heart rate variability is really important to tell where our stress is. Maybe we're doing too much of cold keto. Maybe we're doing too much exercise, too much stress in our life, too much stress in your gut. Okay, so we're just establishing normal ranges and habits here. Then I want you to start to understand how food works for you. How does it make you feel? So I give people metabolic typing diet check, record check. So it's a great chart. I can give it to you if you want to email me, lowcarbathlete@icloud.com. I'll send it to you. It just shows you, okay, how's my energy? How's my mood? How do I feel? Great. Just checking questions to yourself. So we do this 2 weeks, collecting CGM, heart rate variability. I use chronometer and practice better to document this. And then I look at your training peaks. So then when we're ready, we go into stage 2, eating real nutrient dense whole foods. I want you to begin to avoid the processed foods, the vegetable oils, knowing we're just trying to get whole foods in, right? We're not adjusting your macros, just removing the processed foods. So we want to make gradual steps because this is not a diet. It's a new way of eating and creating new relationships with your food. I think a lot of people do this, think, oh, I'm going to do this 30 days. Yes, maybe a strict carnivore diet is helping heal your gut, heal some inflammatory markers. But this is just more, let's figure out real life how I can change how I have relationship with food, what I eat, when, why, how. So baby steps. So then we're working on, Professor Noakes has a great chart, their Banting diet, green foods and orange foods, avoiding the red foods. And then we'll continue test heart rate variability and glucose. Now, this is where someone just asked me this question in our group page. Heart rate variability, if it decreases too much, it may be that you're lowering your carbs too fast and your training loads are too high, or you're having foods that you are reactive to will also drop your HRV. Remember, higher HRV is better. So if you're feeling crappy and lethargic and you're taking your minerals, doing the LMNT, doing your Redmond's real salt in your foods, getting that mineral balance, but you still see your heart rate variability dropping and you're struggling with energy, try not going as low because you are working out and you probably didn't decrease your exercise load and intensity as much as you need to in this process. Increase in glucose. If your carbs go too low too fast before the ketones are being made by the liver, can increase cortisol. Cortisol, stress hormone, your body's under stress. So if your body can't make alternative fuel because it's not ready yet to create those ketones by the liver, then that can increase inflammation and your glucose may be higher. So you're doing too much too fast. So that's why you want to take it one step at a time. So you may need to be careful that your carbs aren't going from super high standard American diet food plan to super low. You might need to back off. And this is where I think everyone's a little different. So don't do too much at once because you're increasing that cortisol, the stress hormone. So that's 2 weeks. And then phase 3 is cold keto, 2-week adaptation, might be 3 weeks, might be 4 weeks. But if you're an athlete, we need to be careful how long this is. The goal is to average 50 grams of carbs, net carbs, no, total grams of carbs for 3 weeks. So this says 2-week adaptation, but then it says 3 weeks. So I think it changes per person. We want to find your sweet spot after this. So we'll stay to 50 grams, maybe 2 to 3 weeks. It's an N=1 experiment. You're finding nutritional ketosis. Testing your ketones with Keto Mojo will help you, but we're not chasing ketones. This is where a lot of people just stop eating real food and start eating all this ketone stuff. Your beta hydroxybutyrate, BHB, is what you're measuring when you do the blood finger prick to measure ketones. Looking for about 0.5. I've heard just 0.1, just that's enough. You're just trying to find, are you making ketones from the liver because your body needs to find alternative fuel because your carbs are low. So we progress to finding your sweet spot in the next phase. 50 grams of carbs up to 130 grams. Some people can go 200 grams and still be good. And then we're matching your fueling and training. But during this phase 3 cold keto phase, remember your training is reduced about 25%. So this is the low carb ketogenic carnivore phase. You're doing like 75% fat, 60% fat or more, and you're getting those protein goals. So you're going more, your fat and protein are coming from more animal-based diet. For a lot of people, that's that keto carnivore program that's working for lots of people. Track and measure, use your chronometer, use your heart rate variability markers, use your glucose ketone measurements daily and track it onto your Training Peaks, or if you're working with me, it's in Training Peaks or Practice Better. And then you're eating foods off the green list: animal proteins, fats, dairies, nuts, seeds, and vegetables. So this is going to be more what Dr. Ken Berry talks about, the proper human diet. Professor Noakes has his food, the Banting diet, and using that green list. So when you're in this cold keto phase, say it's 2 weeks at least. So sometimes people need to be 4 weeks. You're measuring the ketones, see if you hit that 0.1, 0.5, get that nutritional ketosis. This is a topic I want to get into more with some experts that once you're there, we're just becoming more fat adapted. Nutritional ketosis 24/7 is not the goal. Once you are fat adapted, we're able to be metabolically flexible and flex in and out. You don't need to be in ketosis all the time. When you're fasting, when you're not eating, you're in ketosis. When you're eating more lower carb, you might have some ketones, but that's not the goal unless you have some health issues. So female athletes can adjust to cold keto phase late follicular, so say day 7 to day 14, or you can do it the first 2 weeks of your cycle. Some people are okay, like after first few days of the cycle start. So you could do that first 2 weeks of the cycle, follicular phase. Track your HRV so you know if you're doing too low of carbs, you're causing too much stress in your body, maybe with too much exercise. Stress, right? So track the HRV, higher number, the better. Glucose in the mornings, track that. Remember, you have the glucose will be naturally higher in the morning as cortisol is elevated naturally. Get you up and get you going. And then track and measure, and then adjust those carbs, match workouts to lower intensity. So make sure you're in that zone 2 training during this time. So Dr. Dan Plews had an example in this program. What does he do on a cold keto day? So medium chain triglycerides and collagen in his coffee would be fat coffee. He works out, and then he has some eggs, sardines, which everyone's in this 3-day sardine diet. I could not do that. I hate sardines. Broccoli, coconut oil. So there's his carbs are coming from the broccoli. And then he has some coffee and cream, heavy cream, not half and half. And then Dan Plews in IQ works with S Fuels. So S Fuels is his choice. He has a bar, so maybe some almonds. I would do macadamia nuts, but those are trouble because I can eat too many of them. So I stopped eating nuts unless I measure them in a little baggie. They're hard to just have 2 or 3 of them. And then he has some salmon, olive oil, avocado, asparagus. So the carbs would be asparagus, salmon, and olive oil and avocado are all good, healthy fats. Salmon, you get the protein. And then he had steak, simple salad, plus dark chocolate for your treat. So you can get some good dark chocolate. So that's 50 gram total carbs for a day. So that's a ton of food. And he still was getting those carbs low. So it doesn't mean you have to be starving. You're eating a lot. And if you look at what we're talking about, keto carnivore, proper human diet, eating, say, in a fasting window of 12 to 15 hours, when you're eating, trying to hit that protein goal, you want to focus on that ideal body weight in grams of protein. So if your ideal body weight is 150 pounds, you want 150 grams of protein a day, and then break that up 20, 30 to 50 grams of protein spread out 3 times during the day. So that's why I stopped doing such strict fasting, because I wasn't hitting those protein goals, and building muscle, not losing it, is a goal for mine right now. Hopefully for you too. So Cold keto tips and tricks. This is important that Dan Plews talks about. If your heart rate variability is decreasing, this is normal as you're in that 2 to 3 week adaptation phase. Also know that your glucose may increase. Your cortisol is higher as your body is increasing ketones. So it might be a little stressful for your body. That's why we don't want to add more stress in your life at this time. The higher intensity workouts during cold keto phase helps the body adapting. It's normal to have lower performance because you're not going to have as much energy as you're going through this time. And a lot of people have, carb addiction. So I think I found when I did my 5-day detox programs with clients in my fitness studio, a lot of people had some carb withdrawals. So remember, it's just like a drug, taking it out, especially alcohol. I take alcohol out of clients' routines, programs. Sleep can be disrupting. Carb timing at night, 10 grams at night might help you sleep, as well as some sodium, magnesium. So I like to use Element T or Redmond's Real Salt for sodium on all my foods, and then Real-Light's another option. Keto flu is always that popular word. The body's low in carbohydrates, so you're going to be losing the water in the carbohydrate, and you're going to be losing out more minerals. So add lots of salt as you need and potassium and magnesium. I put sea salt on everything. So finding that sweet spot. Once you find that fat adaptation phase and you're starting to show some ketones, now you can find, here's my maintenance stage. So this is where you could tweak, course correct, and this is going to change based on your exercise duration and intensity. Low carb, high fat, 100 to 200 grams of carbs a day, 10 to 20 grams plus or minus. So Dr. Dan Plews talks about his sweet spot for a lot of clients are 130 grams a day. Women might be different. Women, you can look at more that hormone building foods around ovulation and luteal phase, but also those foods to feed progesterone are red meat. So you can do more grass-fed beef. If you don't do well with carbs, look at the other options that are from animal sourced. Eating green foods on that Banting list, adding in orange foods, females adjusting macros to the luteal phase. You might find you need a little different during your cycle. So change your training in each phase to match your nutrition. So this is what I'll talk to Mary Roberts about, what carbs, finding that sweet spot. It's not having bread and bagels and muffins and scones. It's about adjusting those carbohydrates, but getting more root vegetables, getting potatoes and, cooking it in your bacon fat and using sweet potatoes and butter with cinnamon and having some beetroot, but maybe slicing it up. And it's super good if you have someone that knows how to cook, like my husband can do it for me. So your high intensity performance might be decreasing over 6 weeks, and you might need to add in carbs around that workout. If you are looking at when you're trying to find that sweet spot, your heart rate variability, as I said, may be dropping. That's a sign that your carbohydrates are too low, or maybe your calories are too low. I know a lot of people are doing too much fasting and we're not getting enough calories in to keep up with our exercise load. So looking at adjusting your calories or maybe adjusting your carbs post-workout might be beneficial. Training intensity, you're doing a lot of higher workouts, you're more glycogen depleting. So you may need to adjust the macronutrients. So if your glucose readings are increasing, your carbs might be too high, or as my clients are doing functional lab testing with me, we're finding these hidden stressors that are causing chronic stress and inflammation in the body. So a lot of signs of gut dysbiosis, lots of food sensitivities, leaky gut. Leaky gut means leaky brain and inflammation in your body. So it's the whole metabolic chaos picture we see. So when you have higher glucose and you're not really eating carbs, I would start looking at investigating what are some stressors in your life. Another thing to look at, if your high intensity performance is dropping, so your workouts are crappy over this next 6 weeks, then adding carbs Strategic carb timing, even if it's a Vespa or having some S fuels, have a little bar or layered superfood. Their bar has a little bit of carbs from coconut sugar and mushroom adaptogens in it. You can find them at Sprouts grocery store. If you're over 6 weeks, add in carbs before or and during your workout. So then I look at clients high intensity. That's when you're doing zone 5 to zone 1 interval training, or you're doing zone 4 pieces or tempo zone 3 with recovery in zone 1 in between. You're more depleting, the energy is coming from your stored glycogen storage. You can, yes, gluconeogenesis, make more glucose. That takes longer time. So if you need quick, instant energy, having a little honey, having some berries, having something mid-workout may give you extra quick energy boost, not taking protein in during a bike ride when you're going to go high heart rate, because that's not going to give you instant fuel. That will give me fuel 3 hours from now. So then adding in more the orange foods on that Banting list from Professor Noakes, the dinner the night before your morning workout. So the example this morning, I did a 2-hour bike ride at 6 a.m. I had a few sips of coffee, but really it was my fuel was coming from the evening before. So I had to make sure I had something to eat. I had turkey cheese roll up, a mustard and apple and almond butter with some coconut flakes, and had that with sea salt yesterday, and I stopped eating by 6, but I worked out before that. So I had to really make sure I didn't start fasting as I used to do after 4 p.m. And then I probably wouldn't have enough fuel in my body to do intervals this morning. So it all depends on what your schedule was the day before to know, okay, did I top off my glycogen stores the night before in that evening meal? So it depends what type of workout you're doing in the morning is what I keep talking about on the videos. So you can find the playlist. I've been putting them on. So cyclical keto, targeted ketogenic diet. If you're doing higher intensity workout, plan for certain days of the week, add in additional carbs right before or even during that workout. Higher intensity training requires glucose. So keep your energy levels up for these workouts. If you're trying to do higher performance, easily digested carbohydrates, experiment with the amount until you feel you've hit that target. If you're trying to gain muscle mass or do burst training on keto, that's why the cyclical keto might work for athletes. Not the people we're talking to in the low carb cruise that have addiction to carbohydrate. Cyclical keto or carb refeed isn't ideal for that person that has addicted to carbohydrates. That will set them off possibly into binge and not go in a good place. So what is cyclical ketogenic diet? It's 5 to 6 days. 1 to 2 days, you add a little bit more carbohydrates as sweet potatoes, squash, legumes, berries, whatever's in season. It doesn't mean binge on crap. So when you have your so-called carb refeed, I don't like that term. It just means more nature's foods, and add those in, say, on a Saturday, because I just did a 4-hour bike ride. So go back to, if you are able to kind of switch from adding in some real food carbs, then you go lower carb, example, during the weeks, or you do a nightly meal. Your dinner is going to have some of your carbs in that meal. So again, it depends who you're talking to. When we were on the cruise, low carb cruise conference, most of those people, as I said, had some metabolic issues, obesity, struggling with food addiction, and having carbs, as I said already, is just like an alcoholic having it. So you have to look at the person, talk to the person. So training types, I went over this in a previous video. So you can go back and look at these different training types and what we learned from Dan Plews. So hopefully that helps you look at what you can do to start. So all this information is on debbiepotts.net. Go to the free ebooks and you can look at that. But just remember, looking at what you want to do. Nutritional ketosis begins, say, at 0.5 ketone millimoles to 1, and moderate ketone zone 1 to 2, post-exercise, higher fasting. So ketoacidosis is 10, like 9 and above. So this isn't a goal to be here all the time. If you have racing and training, weight loss zone 1.5 to 3, this is from Keto Mojo, light nutritional ketosis, 0.4 to 1.5, but you don't need to chase ketones. You're trying to burn fat for fuel, be metabolically flexible. If you have other health issues going on, maybe you need to be here more often, but as athletes, we're just trying to be burning fat for fuel, being able to switch to carbs when we're doing speed work or intervals or HIIT training, right? So don't be obsessed with this. It's working on being in nutritional ketosis, being metabolically flexible. And when you're not eating, you're using ketones, right? So it's glucose and ketones. So lots to talk about. So let me know your questions, because I'm going to have Robert Sykes from Keto Savage coming on the show, Mary Roberts, as I said, and then Dan Feldman talking about cholesterol and lipids. So lots of upcoming episodes that you might be interested in, trying that to the athlete, because I think it gets confusing out there. Are we doing the right things? If you're listening to everyone out there about being strict carnivore, it's a gut reset. It's a healing protocol. So listening to Judy Cho on the carnivore diet, listening to Dr. Ken Berry, they're talking to people that have metabolic issues, health issues. So if you are healthy, we're using this, as Dan Plews talks about, strategic carb timing and using fat as your main fuel source, carbs your backup fuel energy for sprint, that surge you need. So it depends on the individual. That's what I do as a health coach working with driven, ambitious, high-performing athletes, is look at your fueling and your training, but let's run functional lab tests to reveal hidden sources of internal stressors that are hidden, stands for hormone imbalances, immune dysfunction, digestion issues, detoxification, energy systems, and neurotransmitter. So if you want to learn more, head to debbiepotts.net. I'm also doing Pinoy metabolic testing locally, so I can put that into my personalized coaching program. So hopefully this helps. Bring me your questions for upcoming guests and subscribe to YouTube channel so you can get more updates when I post these videos. Have a great day.